So, in discussing the process of creating a virtual machine, which is where the fun really starts with Hyper-V, or even with any uh, hypervisor platform, unless you really like spinning up the bare metal. Microsoft supports a lot of their own more recent operating systems, supports and certifies them as functional guest OSs in either their 32 or 64-bit forms. Going all the way back to Vista SP2, Service Pack 2 of Vista, everything except the Home Edition, everything except the Home Edition of Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10, which is, I mean, we're still, 10 has been out for a couple of years now and they've gone through this rolling release for system. Windows Home Server, Small Business Server, Windows Server 2008, starting with Service Pack 2, then R2 Service Pack 1, Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2, Windows Server 2016, and now 2019 is out on available. No doubt 2019 is also a valid option. You can deploy other things. One of my demo videos, I built an Ubuntu server. You could probably do other things like, I don't know, FreeNAS, and there's a Hyper-V appliance for Kali that I'm going to try to run in Windows 10. I might actually try it on this server as well, just to see what happens. Anyway, so in terms of creating a virtual machine, you're going to go into the Actions pane and click New. The Actions pane is over on the right-hand side. So you've got your library, the servers you can deal with. Your middle column is whichever VM you're working with right now, and the Actions pane is over at the top. The top of that Actions pane, which we'll see in a little bit, is server-specific. The bottom is VM-specific. So you're going to create a new VM. That'll start the new virtual machine wizard. On server, there is no quick create option. You'll do everything the long way around. You'll specify a name and location. You'll specify a generation, either first or second, and we'll get to that difference in just a minute. You're going to, in the assign memory window, you're going to tell it how much memory you need. Think about the needs of that system. Now, notice here that Hyper-V, unlike VMware Workstation, doesn't ask you what kind of VM you're building. So it can't begin to make judgments about what you might want in terms of the size of the hard drive and how much memory. You're just going to have to do that on the basis of what you know it should have. Now, you can also create a network adapter. You can connect to a hard disk. Either you can create a new one, use an existing one, or attach to a virtual disk later. You can either, in the installation options, you can either prepare the VM for VM for the guest OS you plan to install. Kind of looks like this. So you'll choose your name and location, give it a useful name. If you're planning to keep the VM name and the host name kind of analogous, do that here. Think about the limitations of the host name you can build. You can put it in a different location if you want, but it's going to end up in C Program Data, Microsoft, Windows, Hyper-V all by itself. On the next screen, you're going to specify its generation. Generation 1 will support either 32 or 64-bit OSs with BIOS, with the simulated BIOS, that is. With Gen 2, it will be UEFI based. It will be 64-bit. It will have newer features, newer firmware. Once you set this up, you cannot change it. If you change your mind, you have to blow the VM away and start again. Then, so you'll create a hard disk. You'll give it its size. What I suggest you do here is figure out how big you want this thing to be. Notice the name of the VM will have something to do with the name of the file will have something to do with the name of the VM you created before. So make your decision count. So, you can use an existing disk or attach a new one. I like to dial it back here. It can be enormous. It can be actually larger than the disk you have available to you at the time. Because, of course, I think you can move these things to, say, a new storage space. but I like to dial it back so it doesn't get too ridiculously large. And then you're going to choose whether to install it later. That's your best option. If you want to install from a bootable CD-ROM, that's not an option I see now. Working with Hyper-V, as you'll see in the demos. You can install from a bootable floppy disk. That option may also not be available to you. So it depends on how these things are configured. And then, so there's that. Next, we'll talk about the Hyper-V manager. Thanks, and have a good day.